For 17 years, the FBI chased a phantom. The Unabomber terrorized the nation, yet he managed to leave absolutely zero physical evidence behind. Not a hair, not a single fiber. Whoever was building these explosives was an expert crafter. The bombs arrived in beautiful, handmade wooden boxes, detonating upon opening. The victims seemed completely random: professors, secretaries, airline executives, and the packages arrived with no initial demands or political claims. It is difficult to reconcile that cold, calculated violence with the perpetrator's early life. Born to a working-class family in Chicago, Ted Kaczynski was an exceptionally gifted, sensitive child with an IQ of 168. He played music, loved camping, and easily skipped 2 grades. His academic ascent was staggering. After earning his PhD in mathematics, he landed a tenure track position at UC Berkeley, making him the youngest professor in the university's history at just 25 years old. Then he abruptly resigned. A world-class mathematical genius walked away from a brilliant academic career, moved into a remote wooden shack, and spent the next 2 decades meticulously crafting lethal explosives. Why? For decades, society has tried to make sense of this choice by clinging to 2 distinct narratives. Some view him as a tragic victim of government mind control, while others see him as a dark eco-prophet, warning us about the dangers of technology. Neither of these theories captures the truth. The first theory originates from his time at Harvard. Kaczynski enrolled at just 16 years old. He was a socially awkward, blue-collar kid, suddenly surrounded by America's elite. Other students mocked his shabby clothes, and he quickly withdrew, becoming a depressed and alienated loner. His withdrawn demeanor caught the attention of Dr. Henry Murray, a superstar psychology professor running a CIA-funded project codenamed MK Ultra. The government urgently wanted to know how to break down the psychology of gifted individuals, and they needed test subjects. For 3 years, Kaczynski endured highly abusive interrogations. He was strapped to electrodes and subjected to calculated personal critiques from trained lawyers, specifically designed to humiliate him and erode his sense of self. Looking at this state-sponsored psychological torture, many people conclude that it directly created a terrorist. They assume this trauma simply broke his mind. Yet Kaczynski fiercely fought against the idea that he was a victim or legally insane. He took great pains to ensure his actions were seen as a fully sane, rational choice. He demanded his violence be understood entirely through the lens of his actual ideology. This document is the Washington Post publication of his 56-page manifesto, boldly titled Industrial Society and Its Future. In 1995, he promised to permanently stop his bombing campaign if major newspapers printed it in full. The opening lines lay out his entire worldview. He argued that the Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. To him, technological advancement was actively enslaving humanity and destroying the planet. The only solution was a violent return to a primitive state. Forcing the public to read these arguments became his fatal mistake. When the manifesto hit newsstands, his brother David recognized the idiosyncratic word choices and logical phrasing. After reading it, David made the agonizing decision to contact the FBI. In April 1996, federal agents swarmed this primitive 10-by-12 cabin nestled deep in the Montana wilderness. Inside, they found scraps from junkyards, bomb-making chemicals, and a live explosive under his bed. They also discovered 40,000 pages of personal diaries, all written in a convolution code more complex than anything the KGB used during the Cold War. Arresting Kaczynski ended the immediate violence, but those thousands of pages remained a mystery. Only by translating the handwritten record he left behind would the FBI see the specific person behind the persona. The FBI began translating the decades of daily entries Kaczynski kept during his years alone in the Montana wilderness. The journals exposed glaring contradictions in his lifestyle. For someone supposedly fighting to save the planet, he proudly littered in the woods, illegally poached wildlife, and actively mocked environmentalists in his own writings. The code hid extreme anger and profound resentment toward everyone. He wrote obsessively about petty grievances, fantasizing about murdering women for rejecting him and killing noisy neighbors. Chillingly, Kaczynski explicitly wrote he was happy killing innocent civilians, genuinely taking pleasure in causing people pain. The grand 56-page manifesto acted as a post hoc justification.
He invented a highly sophisticated excuse to make his base, violent urges look like a legitimate revolutionary cause. While we often search for systemic explanations like rogue CIA experiments or technological overreach, the journals Kaczynski kept for himself suggest a different origin. His 17-year campaign was the result of profound arrogance, unchecked narcissism, and simple personal malice.